I opened the bakery I dreamed of and invited my family to the grand opening. Not a single one showed up, they all went to Rosie's promotion party instead. As I locked up alone, Dad texted, "We need to talk about the bakery." You know, there are some moments in life that just gut punch you. You pour your entire heart and soul into a lifelong dream, only to have your own family not just ignore it, but actively choose to celebrate someone else on your big day. Can you even imagine that kind of betrayal? Because that's exactly what happened to me, Eileen, and it absolutely shattered me. I was 32 when I finally opened Sweet Gatherings, the bakery I'd dreamed of since I was a little girl. I'd sent personal invitations to my entire family, beautiful embossed cards, begging them to come. But as I stood there alone in my empty shop, all I saw was my Instagram feed filling up with photos from my sister Rosie's promotion party. Every single family member celebrating her, while my dream stood silent. As I locked up, fighting back tears, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. "We need to discuss the bakery." A cold knot formed in my stomach. Before I tell you how my family crushed my dreams on what should have been the happiest day of my life, let me tell you a bit about how I grew up. In Portland, Oregon, success wasn't just hoped for in my family, it was a non-negotiable demand. My father, James, was a cutthroat attorney, climbing the ladder at Whitman and Associates, a super prestigious law firm. He specialized in corporate law, the kind where clients' names were constantly in business magazines. Dad worked 80-hour weeks, missed most of my school events, but never failed to remind us that his sacrifices put food on our table and kept us relevant in society. My mother, Diane, balanced her hospital administrator career with maintaining our family's social standing. She ran our household with clinical efficiency, scheduling our lives with the same precision she used for hospital departments. Every achievement earned a mental checkmark, with bonus points for anything she could casually drop at a charity gala or country club brunch. Then there were my siblings. Tyler, 3 years older, followed Dad into high-stress finance. By 25, he was an investment banker in New York, sending expensive but impersonal gifts, making brief appearances at holidays, always talking about deals and market trends I barely understood. Rosie, 3 years younger, was the marketing prodigy. She soared at Tech Fusion, one of those trendy tech companies with beanbag chairs and cold brew. Mom and Dad absolutely beamed with pride at every promotion, every salary increase, every company perk Rosie flaunted on her perfectly curated social media. And then there was me, the middle child, the one with flour perpetually under her fingernails. My love affair with baking began when I was 8, in my grandmother Eliza's kitchen. While my parents pushed Tyler and Rosie toward academic competitions and prestigious internships, Grandma Eliza taught me how to feel the perfect consistency of dough between my fingers. When school stressed me out, she'd invite me to her small house on the outskirts of town, and we'd spend hours baking. "Baking is love made visible," she'd say, her hands guiding mine. When someone takes a bite of something you baked, they are tasting your heart. Those words didn't just lodge in my soul, they grew roots. While my siblings collected trophies and certificates, I collected recipes. I documented everything Grandma Eliza taught me in a special notebook, adding my own adaptations. My creations always sold out first at school bake sales. My family, however, viewed my passion as cute but ultimately inconsequential. "It's a nice hobby, Eileen," Mom would say, emphasizing hobby in that particular tone that made it clear it was not to be confused with a career. "But you need to focus on activities that build your college applications." During my junior year of high school, I started working at Bailey's Bake Shop after school. Mrs. Bailey, the owner, became my second mentor. While Grandma Eliza taught me traditional recipes, Mrs. Bailey showed me the business side of baking: profit margins, inventory, customer service. Most importantly, she showed me my dream could be a viable career. "You have magic in your hands, Eileen," she told me after I decorated a challenging wedding cake. "Not everyone can do what you do. Never let anyone convince you that your talent is just a hobby." When college application season came, my parents pushed pre-med programs. "You've always been good at chemistry," Dad reasoned, as if my talent for balancing flavors translated to wanting to be a doctor. I compromised, majoring in business with a minor in food science, hoping to appease them while preparing for my true goal. Then, during my sophomore year, Grandma Eliza passed away. At the reading of her will, I was stunned. She'd left me her modest savings account. To Eileen, the will stated, who understands that the most important ingredients in any recipe are passion and love. It wasn't enough to open a bakery immediately, but it was seed money. A vote of confidence from the one person who had always truly believed in my dream. After college, while my siblings launched their impressive careers, I worked 3 jobs. I was a barista in the mornings, an office assistant during the day, and baked custom cakes from my tiny apartment kitchen on weekends. My family viewed this as my finding myself period, expecting me to eventually give up and pursue a real career. Law school applications are still an option, Dad would casually mention at holiday dinners. My firm is always looking for bright young associates. The hospital has a management training program, Mom would add. I could put in a good word. But my vision for sweet gatherings grew clearer with each passing year. I didn't want just any bakery. I wanted a place that embodied the warmth of Grandma Eliza's kitchen, a gathering spot where people connected over delicious food made with care. I envisioned comfortable seating where neighbors became friends, where families created traditions. Display cases filled with innovative creations and perfected classics, including many of Grandma Eliza's recipes. For 7 years after college, I worked and saved. I researched locations, refined my business plan, built my recipe portfolio. Each step brought me closer to my dream, even as my family continued to view it as a phase I'd outgrow. Then I found it, the perfect location. A corner storefront in a revitalizing neighborhood, big windows, exposed brick, original hardwood floors. It needed work, but it was beautiful, and thanks to Grandma Eliza's inheritance and my savings, it was within budget. When I called my family with the exciting news about signing the lease, their reactions were exactly as I expected, yet still so disappointing. A retail lease in this economy? Dad's voice had that tone he used with risky investments. Send me the paperwork before you sign anything. Better yet, I could invest and help guide it properly. I knew what that meant. His investment would come with control, his vision superseding mine until sweet gatherings was unrecognizable. Mom's response was equally disheartening. Honey, the restaurant industry has such a high failure rate. It's not too late for graduate school. Dr. Levinson mentioned their hospital administration program is still accepting applications. When I called Rosie, her backhanded compliments cut deeper than criticism. Wow. Going full steam ahead with the baking thing. That's so brave of you. I could never risk financial security for a passion project. But that's what makes you special, right? You've always marched to your own drum. Tyler was the hardest to reach, always between meetings or flights. When I finally got him, his response was brief and all business. Send me your business plan and 5-year projections. Did you account for first-year losses? What's your marketing budget? Have you stress-tested your financial model? No congratulations, no excitement, just immediate skepticism and an assumption of failure. Despite their reactions, I threw myself into preparing the space. I coordinated renovations, navigated health permits and business licenses, and refined my menu. Every night, I fell into bed exhausted, but fulfilled. One day closer. During this time, I started forming connections with neighboring business owners. Annie from Bloom and Grow Flowers next door stopped by regularly with coffee and encouragement. Marcus from Cornerstone Books across the street offered marketing advice and promised to stock my pastries. We newcomers need to stick together, Annie said one day. This neighborhood has real community potential, and businesses like yours will be the heart of it. As opening day approached, I created a special menu featuring items inspired by my family. I hoped these namesake creations would communicate what I struggled to express in words, that despite our differences, they remained important to me. James' Power Breakfast Scone for Dad, Diane's Elegant Earl Grey Cake for Mom, Tyler's Wall Street Walnut Brownies, and Rosie's Marketing Maven Macarons in bright, Instagram-worthy colors. At the center of my display plan was a special corner dedicated to Grandma Eliza. I framed her photo alongside her handwritten recipe cards and placed her old wooden rolling pin on a custom shelf, a tribute to her influence. 3 weeks before opening, I sent personalized invitations. Thick cream cardstock, gold embossing. I spent too much on them. Each included a personal note, expressing how much their presence would mean. The responses trickled in with varying degrees of non-commitment. "We'll try to make it if court adjourns early," Dad texted, penciling it in. "Board meetings that week might run long," Mom replied. "Sounds fun. Work is crazy right now, but we'll see what I can do," Rosie's response. Tyler simply said, "In meetings that week. We'll check calendar." I tried not to let their lukewarm replies dampen my excitement. Maybe seeing the finished bakery, tasting the creations named in their honor, would help them understand my passion. Then, 1 week before my grand opening, Rosie called. "I got the promotion to senior marketing director," she squealed. "The company's throwing a huge party next Saturday to celebrate. Everyone will be there. You'll come, right?" My heart sank. Her celebration was the exact same day as my grand opening. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with messages from my parents. "Did you hear about Rosie's amazing news? So proud." Mom texted. "Dinner reservation at Morton's after Rosa's promotion party. Family table for 5, Dad's message read. I stared at my phone, the implication clear. They had automatically included me in their celebration plans for Rosie without even acknowledging the conflict with my grand opening, which they'd known about for weeks. When I gently reminded them, their responses were swift and clarifying. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for your sister," Mom replied. "You can have a soft opening another day," Dad suggested, as if years of work could simply be rescheduled. I swallowed my disappointment and focused on final preparations. The menu was perfected, the space beautiful, marketing materials distributed, even a small write-up in the local paper. I ordered extra ingredients, prepared contingency plans, scheduled my day in 15-minute increments. The night before opening, I stood in the completed space, taking in the realization of my dream. The display cases waited to be filled. The tables were set. The coffee machine gleamed. Despite my family's lack of enthusiasm, I allowed hope to bloom. Maybe seeing it in all its glory would change everything. I woke at 3:30 a.m. on opening day, too excited to sleep. Following my minute-by-minute schedule, I brought the bakery to life. The kitchen filled with vanilla, cinnamon, and fresh bread. Each pastry crafted with precision and love. By 7, the display cases were filled, family-inspired creations occupying prime positions, ready to be appreciated by the very people who inspired them. At 7:30, Annie arrived with fresh flower arrangements. "These are on the house," she insisted, hugging me. "Today is your day to shine." Marcus appeared shortly after with a handmade sign for his bookshop window, directing customers to my grand opening. "I told all my regulars to stop by," he said, placing a small wrapped package on the counter. "A business-warming gift. Open it later." As the clock approached 9 a.m., official opening time, I checked my phone. No messages from my family. I sent a group text with a photo of the ready bakery. "All set for opening. Hope to see you soon." No response. At 9, I unlocked the doors, turned the sign to open, and welcomed my first customers. A steady stream of neighbors and curious locals filled the morning. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. "These cinnamon rolls are the best I have ever had," one woman exclaimed. "I'm definitely making this my regular morning stop," a man declared. Between serving, I constantly checked the door and my phone. Each chime of the bell, my heart leaped. Each buzz of my phone, I checked immediately, only to find service notifications or friends' congrats. By 11, I'd served dozens, but the faces I most wanted to see remained absent. I sent another text. "Great turnout so far. Special treats with your names on them waiting for you." No response. At noon, during a brief lull, I checked social media and immediately wished I hadn't. My feed was filled with photos from Rosie's promotion party, already in full swing despite the early hour. Dad raising a champagne toast in a sleek ballroom. Mom adjusting a "Congratulations, Director Rosie" banner. Tyler, who'd apparently flown in, arm around Rosie, posing for a professional photographer. The caption on Mom's post stabbed deepest, "So proud of our successful daughter." The whole family gathered to celebrate this incredible achievement. The whole family except me. I put my phone away and plastered on a smile as the afternoon crowd arrived. The initial rush had slowed, and though customers continued to trickle in, it was clear sales wouldn't meet projections. Each empty table felt like a personal failure, despite the genuine enthusiasm of those who did visit. A local reporter, Lucy Chan from the Neighborhood Chronicle, arrived around 2. She observed my frequent glances toward the door and my increasingly hollow smiles. "Family couldn't make it?" she asked gently. I considered lying, but opted for the simple truth. They had another commitment. Lucy's eyes softened. She shifted her questions to my passion for baking and my vision for sweet gatherings as a community space. Her kindness nearly broke my composure, but I managed to smile until she left, promising a feature. By 5 p.m., the truth was unavoidable. Not a single family member had come. Not one had even called or texted during business hours. The special pastries I'd created in their honor remained largely unsold, their handwritten name cards a painful reminder of my naive hope. As closing time approached, customers dwindled. I began cleanup with mechanical movements. The day's sales covered basic expenses, nothing more. Social media posts from Rosie's celebration continued to appear, each one a fresh wound. Videos of speeches, expensive gifts, images of the family I'd been born into celebrating without me. At 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before closing, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Dad. "We need to discuss the bakery." No congratulations, no explanation for their absence, no acknowledgement of my achievement or their broken promises to attend. Just a business-like statement implying problems needed solving. As I turned the sign to closed and locked the front door, the emotions I'd been suppressing all day finally broke through. Alone in my beautiful bakery, surrounded by the physical manifestation of my dream and the evidence of my family's indifference, I sank to the floor and sobbed. I don't know how long I sat there crying when a gentle knock on the glass startled me. Annie and Marcus stood outside, concerned faces peering in. I wiped my tears and let them in. "We thought you might need friends tonight," Annie said, holding up a bottle of champagne. "First day of business calls for a proper celebration, whether it was perfect or not," Marcus added, producing 3 glasses from a tote bag. As we sat at one of the tables, toasting my bakery despite the day's disappointments, I realized something important. The family I'd been born into might never understand or value my dream. But perhaps I was finding a new kind of family right here in this neighborhood, with people who showed up when it mattered. The morning after my grand opening, I arrived early to prepare for my second day, determined to move forward. I was elbow-deep in dough when the bells above the door jingled. I'd forgotten to lock the front door. It was still 30 minutes before opening. "Sorry, we're not open yet," I called out, not looking up. "That is apparent from the empty tables," my father's crisp voice replied. My head snapped up. There, filing into my bakery like a corporate delegation, was my entire family. Dad led the way in a business suit, leather portfolio tucked under one arm. Mom followed, her critical gaze sweeping the space, noting every detail with the same expression she used inspecting hospital departments. Rosie entered next, designer handbag swinging, sunglasses perched on her head despite the cloudy morning. A tablet in her hand displayed Tyler's face, apparently video calling from New York. "What are you doing here?" I asked, wiping flour from my hands. "Family meeting," Dad announced, selecting the largest table and gesturing for everyone to sit. "We need to discuss the bakery situation." "I'm preparing for customers," I said, glancing at the clock. "We open in 30 minutes. Based on what we observed yesterday, I doubt you'll be overwhelmed with business," Mom said, her tone sympathetic, but her words cutting. I flinched, but tried to maintain composure. "You observed? None of you were here yesterday." "Social media exists for a reason," Rosie quipped, tapping her phone. The geotags and check-ins for this place were hardly breaking the internet. My brother's tiny voice emerged from the tablet. I reviewed the neighborhood demographics and foot traffic patterns. This location has problematic fundamentals for a specialty food business. They had been monitoring my opening day from afar while celebrating Rosie. The realization added fresh pain to yesterday's wounds. Dad opened his portfolio and removed a stack of papers. We have been discussing your situation, and we believe we have a solution that will minimize damage. My situation? I echoed, anger beginning to simmer beneath my shock. Eileen, honey, Mom leaned forward, her voice dropping to the gentle tone she used when delivering bad news to hospital patients. We all understand the appeal of following a dream, but sometimes dreams need to be adjusted to align with reality. We can help you sell this place before you lose everything, Dad continued, sliding documents across the table. I've contacted a commercial real estate agent. He believes with minimal losses, we can get you out of this lease and recoup some of your investment. I stared at the papers, realizing they were pre-filled listing agreements, ready for my signature. They had prepared these before even seeing my bakery operate for a full day. Mom reached into her purse and withdrew several folded papers. I took the liberty of completing medical school applications for 3 programs that accept late admissions. Your undergraduate grades were strong enough that with the right personal statement explaining this detour, you could begin classes this fall. Tyler's face on the screen looked almost bored. I have run the numbers, Eileen. Based on industry averages and your location, you're looking at insolvency within 4 months. 6, if you drastically cut expenses, which would further compromise quality and accelerate the failure cycle. Rosie, who'd been taking photos of my bakery, finally joined. Look, it's not all bad news. I convinced my boss to open an entry-level position in our marketing department. The pay isn't great, but with your background, you could move up quickly. I'm not supposed to show favoritism, but... She shrugged, her expression making it clear this was a major concession offered out of pity. They continued talking over each other, outlining my failure and their solutions. My dream reduced to a problem requiring their intervention. My years of work dismissed as a misguided phase. Their absence yesterday reframed as rational detachment rather than hurtful abandonment. As they spoke, the bells above the door jingled again, and Mrs. Bailey walked in, carrying a small gift basket. She stopped short at the sight of my family. Eileen, dear, I came to congratulate you on your opening. Is this your family? She asked, approaching with a warm smile. Dad glanced up with the dismissive expression he reserved for service personnel. We are in the middle of a private discussion. Perhaps you could return during business hours. Mrs. Bailey's smile did not waver. I am Adelaide Bailey, owner of Bailey's Bake Shop. Well, Bailey's Bake Shops now, since we have expanded to 5 locations. She extended her hand, which Dad suddenly seemed more interested in shaking. I have known Eileen since she was 16 and recognized her exceptional talent immediately. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Success was a language my family understood, and Mrs. Bailey spoke it fluently. Mom straightened. Rosie lowered her phone. Even Tyler's expression on the tablet sharpened. 5 locations? Dad repeated. That is quite an accomplishment in such a competitive industry. Indeed, which is why I have complete faith in Eileen's success, Mrs. Bailey responded, placing the gift basket on the counter. Her creativity and business acumen remind me of myself at her age, though I dare say her technical skills surpass what mine were then. She turned to me with genuine pride. I wanted to bring this welcome basket and let you know how sorry I am to have missed your opening. My flight from the baking conference in Chicago was delayed. The contrast between Mrs. Bailey's sincere regret for missing one day and my family's complete absence despite weeks of notice hung in the air like the scent of burnt sugar. You know, Mrs. Bailey continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Eliza spoke of her granddaughter's talent constantly at our community baking club. She always said you would surpass all expectations, Eileen. She believed your understanding of how food brings people together was your true gift. A memory surfaced, sharp and painful. Grandma Eliza trying to convince my parents to attend my high school culinary showcase. Their polite refusals. Her disappointed but unsurprised expression. She had always known they would never understand my passion. Something inside me broke and reformed in that moment, stronger and more defined. Why did none of you come yesterday? I asked, interrupting whatever financial point Tyler was making through the tablet. An uncomfortable silence fell. My family exchanged glances, a familiar silent communication. "We told you Rosie's promotion party," Mom finally said. "It was a conflict we could not avoid," Dad added. "The company CEO was there," Rosie pointed out. "It was a career-defining moment." I shook my head. The party started at noon. My opening began at 9. "You could have come for even 30 minutes. One of you. Any of you." More uncomfortable silence. "Just tell me the truth," I pressed. "For once, be honest about why my bakery, my dream, was not worth even a brief appearance." It was Tyler who finally spoke the truth, his digital presence perhaps making honesty easier. The family discussed it and decided that attending Rosie's event sent the right message about what achievements the family values. The words hit me like a physical blow. "You discussed it? All of you? You made a collective decision not to support me." Mom flushed but lifted her chin defensively. "Real achievements deserve real celebrations, Eileen. Your sister has worked incredibly hard to earn her position." "And I haven't?" I gestured around at my bakery, my voice rising. "I have worked 3 jobs for 7 years to save for this place. I've tested hundreds of recipes, built a business plan, secured a lease, navigated permits and health codes, and created something from nothing. How is that not an achievement?" "It's a nice effort," Dad said in his patronizing tone. "But let us be realistic about the difference between opening a small bakery and becoming the youngest director in a Fortune 500 company. We are trying to help you," Mom added, "before this situation becomes any more financially damaging." Dad tapped the listing agreements. "You have 2 choices, Eileen. You can sign these papers and begin the process of extracting yourself from this mistake with our help, or you can continue on this path without our support, financial or otherwise." The ultimatum hung in the air. I looked at each of their faces, seeing not malice, but a genuine belief that they were acting in my best interest. They truly could not see the value in what I had built because it didn't align with their definition of success. Mrs. Bailey placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. The first customers of the day were peering through the front windows. "I think you all need to leave now," I said quietly. "I have a business to run." "Eileen," Dad began, his voice hardening. "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "For my entire life, you have treated my passion as a phase to outgrow, a hobby to indulge, or a mistake to correct. Not one of you showed up yesterday for the most important day of my professional life. Now you arrive with plans to dismantle my dream before it has even had a chance to succeed. I don't want your help. Not like this." I walked to the door and held it open. "Please leave. Customers are waiting." They gathered their papers slowly, expressions ranging from shocked to hurt to angry. As they filed past me, Dad paused. "This conversation is not over," he said quietly. "When you are ready to be reasonable, call us." The bells jingled as they departed, and I welcomed my first customers with a professional smile that hid the storm raging within. The week following my family's impromptu intervention was the darkest period since opening sweet gatherings. Despite my brave stand that morning, their words had planted seeds of doubt that grew with each slow business day. My initial creative energy dimmed, and I found myself going through the motions, without the passion that had previously fueled every batch of dough. Sales declined as my own enthusiasm waned. Customers could sense the difference. Where once my pastries had been created with joy and attention to detail, they were now produced with technical proficiency, but lacked that special touch. Annie noticed immediately. She began stopping by daily, sometimes bringing lunch, other times just sitting with me. Marcus developed a habit of bringing afternoon coffee and staying to help with cleanup. Their quiet support kept me functioning when giving up seemed easiest. My family, meanwhile, continued their campaign of concerned pressure. Dad sent daily messages about the real estate agent being ready when you are. Mom forwarded information about medical school orientations with notes like, "Just keeping options open for you, dear." Rosie's social media featured not-so-subtle posts about knowing when to pivot and failing forward. Tyler sent spreadsheets projecting my business decline with clinical precision. The most painful development came when I discovered, through a casual comment from a distant cousin, that my family had actively discouraged extended relatives from supporting my business. "We were told you were figuring things out and preferred space to work through the process," she explained awkwardly. "Otherwise, we all would have come to your opening." Each night, I returned home physically exhausted and emotionally drained. The bakery wasn't failing outright, but it was struggling. Foot traffic wasn't converting to regular customers at the rate I'd projected. The special touches that made sweet gatherings unique required time and energy I was finding harder to summon each day. 2 weeks after opening, while cleaning out a storage cabinet, I discovered a dusty box I'd packed but forgotten. Inside was Grandma Eliza's recipe journal, filled with her handwriting and margin notes. As I flipped through the familiar pages, a sealed envelope fell out, my name written in her shaky script. I stared at it, realizing she must have placed it there before her death, perhaps anticipating I would find it when I finally opened my bakery. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Eileen," it began. "If you are reading this, you have found the courage to pursue your dream despite all obstacles. I always knew you would. From the first time your little hands pressed into dough beside mine, I saw in you a special gift, not just for baking, but for understanding how food brings joy and connection to others." Tears blurred my vision as I continued reading. "Your parents and siblings may never understand your passion the way I do. They measure success by society's standards, while you measure it by the happiness you create. Neither is wrong, simply different. But never doubt that your path is valid and valuable. The world needs artists and nurturers as much as it needs executives and professionals." The letter continued, recounting specific memories, her observations of my growth as a baker, recipes we'd created, techniques she'd taught me. "Remember, sweet girl, that success is not measured by others' recognition, but by the fulfillment you find in your work and the lives you touch with your gifts. My greatest joy has been watching you discover your passion. My greatest hope is that you will nurture it, even when others cannot see its worth." The letter ended with a postscript that broke the dam of my emotions. "The true secret ingredient in any recipe is love. Your bakery will succeed because no one understands this better than you." I sat on the storage room floor, clutching her letter, sobbing until no more tears would come. Then, for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift inside me. Grandma Eliza had always believed in me, not despite my different path, but because of it. Her validation had never been contingent on me conforming to traditional success metrics. She had loved me for exactly who I was. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt since before the opening. I arrived at the bakery early and began creating new recipes. Not the family tribute items that had gone largely unsold, but creations that reflected my true sensibilities. I developed a lemon lavender shortbread that captured the simple elegance I admired. I perfected a dark chocolate cherry sourdough that balanced complexity with comfort. I created a seasonal fruit galette with a messy, rustic appearance, but harmonious flavors that made customers close their eyes in appreciation. Annie noticed the change immediately when she stopped by. "The light is back in your eyes," she observed. "What happened?" I showed her Grandma Eliza's letter and explained how it had reminded me why I started baking. "I've been trying to prove my worth to people who measure by a different scale. It's time I stopped seeking their validation." "You know," Annie said thoughtfully, "we newcomers to this neighborhood are all struggling with the slow build of customer awareness. What if we created an event together? Something to showcase all our businesses and build community connection." Marcus, arriving with his usual afternoon coffee, overheard and immediately built upon it. "A community gathering. Exactly what your bakery is named for. We could have readings from local authors at my shop, flower arranging mini classes from Annie, and featured pastries from you." The idea took root and began to grow. For the first time since my disastrous opening day, I felt excitement bubbling up again. Not the desperate hope for family approval that had colored my grand opening, but something more sustainable, a vision based on community connection rather than family validation. Lucy Chin, the reporter, called that week to follow up. When I mentioned the community event, she immediately offered to write a feature piece. "This is exactly the kind of local business cooperation the Chronicle likes to highlight," she explained. A collaborative event featuring multiple new businesses could draw attention from throughout the city, not just the neighborhood. That evening, I made the most difficult decision since opening the bakery. I created a new signature item called Eliza's Legacy, a cinnamon roll with apple filling and brown butter glaze, combining elements from both of my grandmother's most beloved recipes. I placed it prominently in my display case with a small card explaining its significance. What I didn't do was create any new items bearing my immediate family's names or send them invitations to the upcoming community event. The announcement would go out on social media and through local channels, but I would no longer desperately seek their approval or attendance. As I locked up that night, my phone buzzed with another text from my father. The commercial property market is heating up. We should list soon before values decline further. Call me. For the first time, I didn't feel a stab of pain or doubt. Instead, I felt the calm certainty that I was choosing my own path. Whether Sweet Gatherings succeeded or failed, it would do so on my terms, as a reflection of my vision, rather than a compromise designed to win approval I might never receive. The 3 weeks following my discovery of Grandma Eliza's letter were filled with purposeful activity as Annie, Marcus, and I planned our community gathering. What began as a simple cross-promotion grew into a neighborhood-wide celebration as other local businesses joined. The vintage clothing boutique offered a small fashion show. The craft brewery created a special pale ale. Even the yoga studio agreed to hold free mini-sessions in the park. Rather than seeking external validation, I focused on authentic connection. My social media strategy shifted from perfectly staged food photos to behind-the-scenes glimpses of bakery life. I shared stories about recipe development, including failures and successes. I posted about the relationships forming between regular customers. The response was immediate and positive, engagement increasing as people connected with the genuine journey rather than a polished facade. Lucy Chen's article appeared 2 weeks before our event, highlighting the collaborative spirit of the new businesses. Sweet Gatherings bakery owner Eileen Marshall exemplifies the community-focused entrepreneurship revitalizing the district, she wrote. Her approach treats food not just as a product, but as a medium for human connection. The article was shared widely, drawing attention from citywide publications and food bloggers. My social media followers grew steadily. For the first time, I felt my bakery gaining genuine momentum, driven by authentic interest rather than obligation. I didn't send my family invitations to the community gathering, but I did post public announcements on all platforms. Whether they attended would be entirely their choice. The morning of the event arrived with perfect early autumn weather, crisp enough for hot drinks, sunny enough for outdoor activities. I had been baking since midnight, preparing an expanded menu, including a prominent display of Eliza's Legacy cinnamon rolls. Annie arrived at dawn with elaborate flower arrangements. Marcus set up a book exchange cart. By 9 a.m., an hour before official opening, a line had already formed outside Sweet Gatherings. "This is really happening," I whispered to Annie as we peeked out the window. "This is what happens when you build something authentic," she replied, squeezing my hand. When we opened the doors, people flowed in steadily, filling the bakery with energy and conversation. The display cases emptied faster than I could restock them, with Eliza's Legacy selling out within the first hour. Every table was filled, customers sharing space with strangers who quickly became conversation partners. The community I had envisioned when naming my bakery was manifesting before my eyes. Mid-morning, a familiar figure appeared at the counter. Mrs. Bailey stood there, beaming with pride, accompanied by 3 other women. "Eileen, these are some of my former employees who have gone on to open their own successful bakeries," she introduced them. "We've formed something of a mentorship network, and we would love to have you join us." As I thanked her, overwhelmed, I noticed my phone buzzing with notifications. Photos from the community gathering were being shared widely, including by food influencers who had made the trip. The hashtag Sweet Gatherings was trending locally. By noon, it became clear that I had underestimated turnout. Pastry supplies were running dangerously low. I was considering an early closure when Lucy Chen arrived with the owner of Riverfront Restaurant, one of the most popular farm-to-table establishments in the city. "Mark has an interesting proposition for you," Lucy said. "He's been sampling your pastries and wants to discuss a potential partnership." Mark explained he'd been searching for a local bakery to supply bread and desserts. "Your flavor profiles and commitment to quality ingredients align perfectly with our ethos," he said. "We'd start with a small weekly order, but if it works well, we could expand significantly." As I discussed logistics with Mark, I spotted a woman photographing my menu with a professional camera. She introduced herself as a representative from the Small Business Development Grant Committee. "We focus on innovative local businesses that contribute to neighborhood revitalization," she explained, handing me her card. "Your collaborative approach with neighboring businesses is exactly the kind of economic development model we seek to support. I would love to send you grant application materials." The day continued to exceed all expectations. By closing time, Sweet Gatherings had served more customers in one day than in the entire previous week. Every pastry had sold, business connections had formed, and most importantly, the bakery had established itself as a genuine community hub. As I tallied receipts that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unexpected source. My father had sent a formal message. "Saw the coverage of your event today. Congratulations on the turnout. Available to discuss business growth strategies if interested." No warmth, no admission of his previous dismissiveness, but an acknowledgement of observable success. It was followed by messages from the rest of the family in quick succession. "Mom, your bakery looked lovely in the photos online. The flower arrangements were exquisite. You always did have an eye for aesthetics. Rosie, that social media strategy is generating serious engagement. Clever approach targeting the community angle. My team was discussing it today. Tyler, wholesale accounts provide stable revenue streams. The restaurant connection is worth pursuing. Consent comparative analysis if helpful." Their messages reflected their unchanged perspectives, each viewing my success through their particular professional lens rather than understanding what truly mattered to me. Yet there was a new tone of respect, however grudging. I responded politely but briefly to each, neither seeking their approval nor rejecting their tentative overtures. My focus remained on building what I had started rather than vindicating myself in their eyes. In the following weeks, Sweet Gatherings experienced steady growth. The partnership with Riverfront Restaurant provided a reliable wholesale income stream that stabilized finances. Several other restaurants reached out. The small business grant application advanced to the final round. Most importantly, regular customers began to form, people whose names and preferences I came to know, whose lives intersected with mine through the simple medium of food shared in a welcoming space. A month after the community gathering, Sweet Gatherings recorded its first consistently profitable week. The milestone prompted me to hire my first employee, Jessica, a culinary school graduate who shared my philosophy. With help in the kitchen, I could focus more on creative development and community building. My family maintained a cautious distance, occasionally sending messages that revealed they were monitoring my progress. Their communications always carried an undercurrent of surprise at my continuing success, as if they were still waiting for the failure they had predicted. I responded with polite updates, but no longer felt the desperate need for their understanding that had once consumed me. In this new chapter, I found a quiet confidence growing. Sweet Gatherings was becoming exactly what I had envisioned. Not because I had finally won my family's approval, but because I had stopped measuring success by their standards and started living according to my own. 6 months after the community gathering, Sweet Gatherings had evolved beyond my initial vision in the most wonderful ways. The bakery had established itself as a neighborhood institution, with regular customers who had become friends and a reputation that drew visitors from across the city. The small business grant had funded an expanded kitchen and outdoor seating. My most meaningful innovation was the creation of Chosen Family Sundays, a monthly event where customers could reserve the bakery for a shared community meal. I provided the space, bread, and desserts, while attendees brought dishes to share. The concept resonated deeply with people seeking connection in a fragmented urban environment. Annie, Marcus, and several other local business owners had become my closest friends and most trusted advisors. Mrs. Bailey's mentorship network provided professional development opportunities, and her wisdom helped me navigate complex decisions. My relationship with my family entered a new phase during this period, one characterized by careful rebuilding on my terms, rather than desperate seeking of approval on theirs. The change began subtly, with their gradual acknowledgement of sweet gatherings as a legitimate business rather than a hobby or phase. The first significant shift occurred when my father attended a special event at the bakery without attempting to offer unsolicited business advice. He arrived alone, observed operations with his analytical eye, and purchased several items before leaving with a simple, "You have built something functional here." From my father, this constituted high praise. More importantly, he had come on his own initiative and engaged with my world without trying to remake it according to his standards. My mother began stopping by occasionally with friends, a form of social acknowledgement that meant more than her words. I told my hospital board about your bakery, she mentioned during one visit, a hint of genuine pride in her voice for the first time. Several of them have become regular customers. Rosie's approach to reconciliation involved professional respect before personal connection. Your social media presence has serious engagement metrics, she noted during a rare Sunday visit. My team actually referenced your community building strategy in a recent presentation. Later, more quietly, she added, I think I've been comparing our accomplishments since we were kids. Maybe we could just be sisters instead of competitors. Tyler made the most dramatic gesture, flying in from New York specifically to visit. He arrived with his usual spreadsheets, but also with uncharacteristic humility. Your financial trajectory has defied standard industry projections, he admitted. I was working from models that did not account for the community investment factor you prioritized. There are some lessons here for traditional business approaches. I welcomed these overtures with cautious optimism. The wounds from their absence at my opening and their subsequent intervention attempt had healed, but left scars. I established boundaries around how we discussed my business and my choices, making it clear that respectful engagement was welcome, while controlling behavior was not. I am open to rebuilding our relationship, I told my father during a particularly honest conversation, but that requires acceptance of who I actually am, not who you wish I would become. The most profound healing in my life, however, had nothing to do with family reconciliation. It came from the realization that my worth was not determined by their validation. The journey from seeking their approval to finding my own measure of success had transformed me in ways that extended far beyond business ownership. As sweet gatherings thrived, I expanded the space to include Eliza's Corner, a special area featuring my grandmother's photo, recipe books, and a small library of baking resources. This space became the heart of our community outreach programs, including free baking classes for underprivileged youth and a weekly senior citizens coffee gathering. A year after opening, Sweet Gatherings was featured in a national publication about community-centered business models driving neighborhood revitalization. The writer highlighted not just the quality of our products, but the intentional cultivation of connection that made the bakery special. Marshall has created more than a successful business, the article concluded. She has established a template for how commercial spaces can foster genuine community in an age of digital isolation. On the first anniversary of Sweet Gatherings, we hosted a celebration that filled the bakery and spilled out onto the sidewalk. My family attended, not as central figures, but as guests among many, taking their place in the wider community that had embraced my vision. As I looked around that evening, I realized how perfectly the reality had come to match the name I had chosen. Sweet Gatherings had indeed become a place where sweetness, both literal and metaphorical, brought people together. The journey had not followed the path I initially imagined, but it had led to a destination more meaningful than I could have planned. The most valuable lesson I learned throughout this year was not about business strategy or even about baking. It was about the nature of validation and the source of true confidence. My family's inability to recognize the value in my dream had initially seemed like the greatest obstacle to my success. In reality, it became the catalyst for my most significant growth. Sometimes our dreams succeed not despite family disappointment, but because it forces us to find our true strength. When external validation disappears, We must learn to trust our own vision and values. That painful process of separation and self-trust ultimately leads to more authentic achievement than success that comes through conforming to others' expectations. I'd love to know, have any of you ever experienced something similar in your own lives? Did you have to choose between following your passion and meeting others' expectations? And did you find your own version of chosen family along the way? Tell me what you think in the comments. I really want to hear your stories.